Winning ugly is something that happens a lot. Like we're seeing it with the Spurs at times. We're seeing it obviously even with Wemby is one of the greatest players. He was one of the best players in the world who looks like a future GOAT. Like there are times where you don't win pretty. Most of the time when it comes down to it, dogfight games, everyone talks about it where it's like game sevens are never good basketball games. They're never good basketball games. And it's like, yeah, game seven, even 2026 or 2016 finals was a tense game. It wasn't a good game. Like there was like 4 minutes where no one scored in an NBA game.
One narrative coming out of the fever dream game that keeps resurfacing is the idea that Caitlin Clark was prevented from playing her game. That framing misses what actually happened. This was not a game designed to sideline Clark. It was a game the Fever needed to win, and they won it the way that particular matchup demands. Ugly. Winning ugly is not a failure. It happens at the highest levels of the sport constantly. Even players considered generational talents go through games where the basketball is grinding, uncomfortable, and far from polished. Game sevens are the most celebrated games in the sport, and they are rarely good basketball. The 2016 finals had a stretch of 4 minutes where neither team scored.
Scored in an NBA game. And that's what this felt like. This felt like a playoff atmosphere. And this was a grinded out game. Something that the Indiana Fever, and especially Caitlin Clark, was not able to do in the past. This was a game where I genuinely believe that if Caitlin Clark makes one more 3-pointer, and she missed a really bad layup in, I think it was the fourth quarter, she missed a reverse layup that she should never miss, and if she just makes one more of those threes, Caitlin Clark suddenly has 22.
What the Fever played against Atlanta had that same kind of locked-in, suffocating energy. And historically, that is a game Caitlin Clark has not been equipped to influence. That has changed. If Clark converts one more 3-pointer and avoids a missed reverse layup in the fourth, shots she makes at a high rate, the box score reads 22 points and 8 assists. Add 2 possessions where teammates convert the easy looks her passing creates, and that number climbs further without Clark doing anything differently. The shooting line looked rough. The actual game she played was not. She threw one genuinely bad pass the entire night.
For those threes. Caitlin Clark suddenly has 22 points, 8 assists, and let's just say, fucking two more of her passes, or two of her passes that were to fouls were and one. Like Lexi doesn't shit herself on that layup for the foul, and one of the kicks or when she kicked to Mo Billings in the paint, she doesn't miss the skyhook. Suddenly that game is 20 without Caitlin doing anything different, just based on 2 misses, still not the greatest shooting game, 8 for 17. And
her second turnover came on that chest pass. Her third was the result of being fouled twice in the same possession. Angel Reese hit her first. Then Jordan Canada followed. She protected the ball in an environment built to force mistakes. Defensively, she stepped into the hardest assignments available. Jordan Canada had scored 26 points in the first half of a game. Against the Fever last season, Clark guarded her in the second half and held her to 4. She switched onto Alicia Gray. She switched onto Ryan Howard.
2 shots that she should make. And two of her teammates making shots, making gimmies. And suddenly you're looking at 22 and 10. And a game where not only that, she took over in the third quarter. When the going got tough, she stepped up while taking care of the ball. Like she threw one bad pass in the entire game. It was a chest pass to I don't know what she was doing in her second turnover. Her third turnover, she got hacked. She got hacked by Angel, and then Jordan Canada.
When the game demanded toughness on that end, she did not retreat to the easier coverage, and Misha Hines-Allen did something to Angel Reese that has not been seen before. She physically imposed herself and won those battles. Reese has bullied some of the strongest forwards in the league. That did not happen here. Looking at Clark's most significant performances across her career, The ones that hold up are rarely the games with clean shooting lines. The Minnesota game, where she scored 10 in the fourth to erase a 10-point deficit, she shot 5 of 17 for the full game. The Mercury game, where she was involved in 18 of 20 consecutive points, 4 of 14 from the field.
Jordan Canada hacked her. She got hacked by 2 of them. So you're looking now, when it comes to Caitlin, at, heck, even she made another free throw, where I feel like this is, if you're asking me, where do I rank this in terms of Caitlin Clark games? I rank this very, very high. Because you guys saw how the Atlanta Dream defended Caitlin. It is a bit of a concern that they couldn't sell out gamers for a Caitlin Clark Angel Reese game. That is a bit concerning. But
the first Atlanta Dream win against Reese. 11 points, 8 assists, 6 rebounds on 4 of 11 shooting. The box score looked ordinary. The game did not. That is the kind of player Clark is becoming. Someone whose impact runs through things that do not always show up in the final line. For a long time, when games turned physical, grinding, or structurally difficult, Clark's ability to move the needle fell off. The Connecticut Sun targeted that in the 2024 playoffs. The Aces made games brutal, and both teams suffered for it.
But like, you guys have seen when it comes to Caitlin, like, she has had games where everyone talks about some of her greatest games ever. People talk about the Atlanta Dream game last year, where this is exactly what she did. She had 12 points and 9 assists in that game. But she came in at halftime and took over. The team changed how they played. She guarded Jordan Canada, who had 26 first half points, and held her to 4 in the second half. Like, it was Caitlin taking over. Caitlin Clark took on.
Against certain Minnesota matchups, the tighter the game got, the less she was able to change it. Yesterday was different. She timed her biggest plays to the moments the game needed them most. She absorbed the defensive load without disappearing on the other end. She kept the fever in it during the stretches. When Atlanta was pushing for control, there were flashes of tempo pushing in the third quarter. Moments where the pace opened up and Clark accelerated into them. Those stretches need to extend over longer periods, but the foundation for it was visible.
It was Caitlin taking over. Caitlin Clark took on. She was willing to take the tougher defensive assignments. Jordan Cannon has been hooping. There were times she switched on to Alicia Gray. There were times she switched on to Ryan Howard. All three of Caitlin Clark, Kelsey Mitchell, and Grace, or it's not, she's not Grace Van Sloot, named Raven Johnson, all took on super tough defensive assignments. And it's one of those things where you're looking now at these players and it's like, okay, we've like...
The broader question, whether Clark and Stephanie White can sustain this through a full season and into the playoffs, remains open. If the results deteriorate and they fall short of the postseason or exit early, the conversation shifts to structural changes, whether that means the coaching staff or the roster. Trading Clark would be easier to execute than firing White, practically speaking. But that conversation is premature. There are plenty of situations in professional sports where everything looks broken right up until it is not. And then, the team that held on finds itself winning. The outcome here is not settled either way. What is settled is that the Atlanta Dream requires ugly basketball to beat.
Okay. We matched up to a good team and we just outplayed them. We played harder. We got the breaking ball. Maisha Hines-Allen, for the first time in Angel Reese's career, got physically bullied. She got physically beaten. And I get it. MHA, you also take into account again that MHA are calling some bullshit fouls. But MHA physically put it up to Angel Reese, and I haven't seen that yet. But
that is not a stylistic preference. It is a tactical reality. training to play free and open against a team built around physicality and second chance. Opportunities does not work. The Fever understood that on the night, executed it under difficult conditions, and won. A rumor has been circulating that the Indiana Fever are planning to trade Caitlin Clark to the LA Sparks. It deserves discussion, but it also deserves an honest assessment of how realistic it actually is. The short answer: almost certainly not happening. And if a Clark trade does come together at some point, the Sparks are among the least logical destinations in the league.
They're not at that stage. If they're going to trade Caitlin, it's not going to be too close to the deadline. But if they are realistically going to trade Caitlin, it's also not going to be to the Sparks. One, Caitlin doesn't necessarily want to go there. And two, Sparks don't have anyone that they can trade for Caitlin Clark. The only way I'm looking at it, and I'm like, so what could the Sparks give for Caitlin? First of all, like, the conversation starts and ends with...
Start with the assets. LLA simply does not have what Indiana would need in return for a player of Clark's caliber. Any conversation about this trade begins with the Sparks absorbing Monique Billings' contract, already a concession on Indiana's part, and then building around that. The only genuinely interesting pieces in the Sparks roster are Kelsey Plum, Dara Hamby, and Cam Brink. Hamby is on a multi-year deal, which complicates everything. Brink is the defensive anchor the Sparks have built around. Plum is a bucket, but pairing her with Clark creates a backcourt that plays even worse defense than the current Fever setup, which is already a problem.
The conversation starts and ends with you are giving the Indiana Fever minimum. You're fucking over one of the three players that want to be in LA. You're fucking over one of Neka Wimake, Kelsey Plum, or Diarca Hamby. And the Fever do need a big. So the conversation starts. Again, it's not happening. When the conversation starts with LA taking on Monique Billings' contract and one of Hamby or Neka, probably Hamby because she's on a multi.
You would be trading away the Sparks' most meaningful piece, taking on a bad contract and ending up with a roster that has real structural flaws. There is also the Kelsey situation. If Indiana is moving Clark, a likely goal is retaining Kelsey Mitchell, who is a complementary fit for almost any system. Having Plum and Clark in the same backcourt does not solve that equation. It just replicates it in a different uniform. For the Sparks, the basketball case is equally murky. LA does not generate the kind of revenue from a Clark acquisition that larger market teams might project onto this. They are not playing in arenas or media environments where the Clark effect translates directly into the kind of financial upside that would justify gutting the roster.
And one of Hamby or Neka, probably Hamby because she's on a multi-year deal. Hamby coming over to Indiana. But also, they can't afford... they can't have to get rid of Monique Billings. So they're going to have... The Sparks will have to take Monique Billings' contract. And then Hamby makes, $400K extra. So you got to go basically on a minimum deal. And there's nobody that's on a minimum deal that's worth it. None of them. None of them are good. Like, the Sparks will have to give up their next 2 firsts. And you would probably have to take the Ty Harris contract as well.
The dollar signs that make a Clark trade tempting in theory do not apply here the same way they might elsewhere. On the coaching end, the rumor pairs this trade with Corey Close becoming head coach in LA. That connection does nothing to make the situation more appealing from Clark's perspective. Close's track record at the collegiate level, specifically with Kiki Rice, who genuinely looked more capable as a pro than she did under Close in college, does not suggest a natural fit for the kind of point guard freedom Clark needs to operate at her best. The rumor appears to originate from Klay Thompson's father, referencing sources, and from a separate unnamed figure claiming the Fever intend to ship Clark west and install Close as the replacement for Stephanie White. Neither source carries the weight of a credible front office contact, and the logic of the basketball move does not hold up on either side. If a Clark trade does materialize, the timeline would almost certainly be closer to the deadline, not now.
Maybe, fuck it, maybe you take the Lexi contract and you get Kelsey Plum, Dearica Hamby, and a first. And then Kelsey might leave after a year. There is nothing. I don't understand why this is something that people are talking about. Like, I get it. Klay Thompson's dad said, I'm hearing from from sources that the Indiana Fever don't want Caitlin Clark anymore.
And the destinations worth actually examining are ones with real asset packages. Washington is a logical fit. Kiki, Shakira Austin, Sonia Citron alongside Clark represents a genuine core, and the Mystics could construct a package centered on Amore and Betts that Indiana might actually consider. Dallas has the pieces on paper through a Paige Becker's adjacent deal, though the contract math around Alana Smith and the Enrique deal makes it complicated. Those are the conversations worth having if the situation escalates. The Sparks version of this trade exists because people want Clark in LA, not because either side of the transaction has a coherent reason to make it happen. There is no timeline, no realistic package, and no basketball logic that gets this done. It is projection dressed up as a rumor.
Caitlin Clark anymore. And then we've got a person that I'm not even naming saying the Fever are planning to ship Caitlin Clark to Sparks and that they expect Corey Close to become the head coach. First of all, Corey Close is not a good coach for Caitlin Clark. Did you not see what Corey Close did with Kiki Rice at the collegiate level? Like, she had Kiki Rice, who looked better as a pro than she did in college. Like, she's not. Lynn Roberts is a better coach for Caitlin Clark than Corey Close, and I don't love Lynn Roberts as a coach. But it would be like what would it be like? Cam Brink, Latson, and Hamby for Caitlin, Ty Harris, and Mo Billings. Like, you would have to give up Mo Billings' contract, but like, there's no way that at this point in time they're planning on trading her to LA of all places. First of all, I don't think she wants to be. The only reason you would send Caitlin to LA is if she wants to be in LA and she's made it clear that she's not going to sign the extension anywhere else. And that's the only way you see people just randomly getting traded to a big market team for under market value. But she doesn't want to be in LA. There are teams that can trade for Caitlin Clark and that can put together packages. The Mystics is probably the best package you're going to get. Like, a lot of these teams with young players, like the Wings could obviously put together a package even without Paige Beckers, but they're not going to consider that. The Wings, to be honest, if I'm the Wings, and you could put together a package centered around a whack, an AZ, and a pick. Like, that's one where you like really consider it if you're Indiana. Where you really, really consider it. To pair up Paige with Jess Shepard, Lana Smith, like, that might be one where on paper is a win-win, but like, I don't think Dallas risk making that trade because you're going to have to